For more on all of this, we're pleased to be joined now by attorney and New York Times bestselling author Mark Smith. Mark's a senior fellow in law and public policy at the King's College. Donald Trump, Mark, was on the stump yesterday in West Palm Beach, and he took time out to call all of these allegations, and we've gone beyond that tape for Access Hollywood to some more disturbing allegations. Mr. Trump says they're just vicious partisan attacks. Let's listen to the way he put it yesterday in West Palm Beach.
These vicious claims about me of inappropriate conduct with women are totally and absolutely false. And the Clintons know it, and they know it very well. These claims are all fabricated. They're pure fiction, and they're outright lies.
So, Mark, the way we used to look at this politically, something like this. If the election is about the issues confronting the American people, Donald Trump can win it. But if the election has Donald Trump as the main issue, he loses. That standard political calculus doesn't apply in this special year.
I'm really not sure it does, JD. I think there's really two questions. One is, who do people support? But then there's a second, equally, if not more important question for this election year, and that is, who's actually going to show up and vote? And I think what's quite interesting, JD, is if you look at the fact that Donald Trump is filling stadiums with tens of thousands of people that are willing to stand in line for 5 hours to hear him and see him, versus Hillary Clinton that has gone AWOL again for another 5 days, as I understand it, it's telling you something about that. So it's not just about who do you like, it's about who are you willing to get off your butt and go vote for. And I think that's a big question, and we don't know the answer to that. That's why I think this is such an extraordinary and different election than what we've seen in the past, JD. And frankly, anyone who says they know what's going to happen in November is kidding you. Because no one really does.
That's why we're all talking about it and getting ready for it, because you have opinion polls now, but obviously the people have the final say on the first Tuesday following the first Monday in November. But what we are seeing, and really you can sum up what you were talking about, Mark, with one word: intensity. The Trump people are very intense in their admiration and their intention to vote for Mr. Trump. Meantime, the Democrats are trying to build that intensity, thus Michelle Obama back out on the stump. And again, we're going to dip into some of her comments yesterday that, I'm sorry, to me seems as if they almost came from a soap opera. Here she is on the stump again yesterday.
The shameful comments about our bodies, the disrespect of our ambitions and intellect, the belief that you can do anything you want to a woman. It is cruel. It's frightening. And the truth is, it hurts.
So we're a country that remains in a depression. We're in a country where the Russians are making all sorts of preparations for World War III, apparently, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And there's Michelle Obama, almost in tears about self-image. Thus, the soap opera thing. Here's my point. She's trying to build intensity among women voters and trying to bring out especially African American women voters because they're worried about the intensity level on the left, correct?
Well, of course, I think that given the fact we're less than a month out from presidential election, I think everything that anyone does in politics is somehow going to be motivated by what's going to occur on election day. And Michelle Obama's speech is no different. And obviously, they've made a strategic decision to think that, this kind of rhetoric somehow is going to generate, support for Hillary Clinton. Now, while it may, these are clearly attacks on Donald Trump. The question is this going to be enough to get people to really go out and vote for Hillary Clinton? Because when they pull the lever in those ballot boxes, right, they're not just voting against Donald Trump, they're voting for Hillary Clinton. And the question is whether or not these kinds of speeches at this late stage are going to be enough to overcome 3 decades of Hillary Clinton's very difficult and problematic public life. And, we just don't know what's going to motivate the voters right now. It could go either way, of course.
And because we don't know, that's precisely why we're inviting your calls at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. Again, yesterday in West Palm Beach, Donald Trump put the focus on the Clintons over what he's calling lies that the Clinton campaign is generating about him. Here's the way he put it on the stump.
I will not allow the Clinton machine to turn our campaign into a discussion of their slanders and lies, but will remain focused on the issues facing the American people.
You know, you hear that, Mark. Sounds great. But the bulk of his speech was spent on what yesterday? Addressing all those issues. Now, there are two schools of thought. The traditional thing is you leave that for your surrogates, but there's another school of thought saying when you're directly attacked, you better refute that publicly and in convincing fashion. Your take on those two conflicting pieces of advice?
Look, I think at this stage in the game, we're so close to election, I think it behooved Donald Trump to come out and express unequivocally his view on these allegations. And he clearly vehemently has denied them and retained counsel to address them. I think that's a far different situation than if you remember the days of Bill Clinton, where his response to Monica Lewinsky after many period, it was like a couple weeks before he specifically addressed it. Finally, he said something along the lines of, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. This kind of like, denial, but then, technical term as to what sexual relations mean and things along these lines. Donald Trump's statement yesterday was a unequivocal, no ambiguity whatsoever denial. And I think he really had to do that, given that we're only a few weeks out from an election. And I think the American people have a right to know his view on this and what is he saying about this. And as to what people believe, I will say this, though, JD, you have to admit that if you're going to get into a debate over who's telling the truth, the Clintons are a very interesting, couple to get into that debate with, given their long history of, let's just say, an arm's length relationship with the truth.
Well, and that since you are sitting there in New York City and at King's College, a really smart guy on law and public policy, we call New York City the media crossroads of the planet. The major newspapers, the alphabet networks, their cable cousins. And this is the point. It's kind of crazy to have the Clintons suddenly in the role of judge and jury, something like out of Hawthorne's Scarlet Letter, and directing this all at Donald Trump. Your take on what appears to be, and this is what Trump was talking about yesterday, clear coordination among the alphabet networks, the major newspapers, the cable news outlets, and the Clinton campaign. Is there any doubt in your mind that there is not some sort, I'm not talking conspiracy, but a consensus of view and coordination in terms of these attacks on Donald Trump?
Look, I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think it's really out of the open. If you simply compare, the coverage of, what's being covered in certain aspects of the news with what ABC, NBC, CBS, and the New York Times are covering and how they're covering it, I don't think there's any debate that the mainstream media is totally in Hillary Clinton's camp. If you look at how they cover all the issues up and down the line. And as to why that is, we can only speculate. But the fact is, I've never seen the mainstream media go so over the top against any candidate in my entire life. And the mainstream media has always been pro-democratic.
Tell you what,
boy,
I hear what you're saying. Let's let a caller in very quickly. Bill is in Brooklawn, New Jersey. Bill, you got 20 seconds. Make it count.
All right, here you go. Listen to me. Is Obama Hitler or Stalin? How could he say that hands are off on Michelle Obama when she's talking trash about Trump too?
Yeah, it is very interesting, Mark, that there come this admonishment from the White House to Donald Trump. Don't you dare take on Michelle Obama. But my way of thinking, Mark, they may actually be doing him a favor, trying to goad him into attacking Mrs. Obama. He needs to keep his concentration on the Clintons. Listen, Mark, hang around. We're coming back with headlines and punchlines and more.